Hello everyone and welcome to the video. Let me adjust this thing. Welcome to this video on verbal de-escalation or the basics of verbal de-escalation. Wednesday I uploaded a video on proper mindset or the types of mindsets that you see during a threatening situation that was an idea that I got in one of the replies from a photo circle from my introduction video. Um, this is going to be a pain in the butt, doing this. I'm usually not used to wearing glasses, but I have some things I've got to read. There's nothing wrong with glasses. I just think these look like cult leader glasses, and so I don't like wearing them because of that. But in thinking about proper mindset, in threatening situations, the idea of verbal de-escalations come up. And Tuesday, I actually posted a link to an old blog article that I did about 7 years ago. And I'll be kind of relying on that as well because the information in it is still good and still really valid. So without further ado, the basics of verbal de-escalation. Okay, so there was this incident that happened that I want to lead off in. I know that I talked about one during the last video, but this is a different one. So basically, I'll just start from the top. It was in a situation where kind of World War III was breaking out, at this bar, and it was just hard. There had to be a lot of verbal de-escalation, so it's a good example. It's like I barely even knew this person that was involved in it. It happened on Halloween night. I was sitting at a bar a little ways from there, and him and his girlfriend walked in, and then there was this other guy there that was a mutual friend of ours that I actually knew pretty well. And I was probably like 30-ish, and I was never really big on clubs anyway. I'm just not a club guy. And especially around that age, it's kind of borderline where you get a little bit too old to be up in the club. But anyway, they were trying to talk me to go into this club that I really didn't like. Which I don't like any clubs, but particularly that one, I'd had problems in before. But there'd be a lot of girls there, and I was a single guy then, and of course I am now too. But they offered to drive because I don't drive at all, when I'm drinking or try not to, and so eventually they talked me into it. So we got to this club, and and it was actually a really nice time. Things went really well. We stayed there. Till closing, shut the thing down, and we met a lot of people. We were talking about getting a room that night at a hotel, kind of across the highway. And, I was kind of right outside the door talking to this girl when, I seen somebody walk up. Well, I seen this guy, talking to some other guy. And I figured, it was just a friend of his. He knew him, wasn't that big of a deal. And so then I went back to, talking to this girl. And, like I said, it didn't seem like anything stood out, but then all of a sudden, this other guy come up, and, I heard something. I'm not really sure, what they were talking about, but something like, hey, didn't you pull a gun on his dad or something? And, it was a really, kind of a redneck place, but it was just like, what? But at the same time, you hear things like that. I mean, it just it's a weird culture. I'm glad I'm no longer a part of it. But the guy, started like berating him and started like like pecking his head like a woodpecker, or like Marcy Darcy on the old Married with Children episode, like a chicken. And so he was just kind of pecking away. And kept saying, man, you messed up, man, you sorry, but him and the other guy, they'd already gotten past it. Anyway, they were saying something inaudible, and I started to walk over there, but before I could walk over there, before I could get over there, my new friend and everything just took his elbow and just bam, just boom, dapped him right there, hit this guy like right in the face, knocked him slap out, his head banged against the concrete. I mean, he just dropped, man. He was out before he hit the ground. And this is when the club was letting out, so the club had emptied and everybody was outside. And so everybody, started like congregating around. I'm like, whoa, man, we need to get out of here. And so I stepped in front of him and put my arms out. And he was kind of on this side, and I started moving him back because we were parked towards the back of the parking lot. And these people were like, yelling, and he was jawing back at them, and everything else, and he shouldn't have been. And at one point, I actually turned to him and was like, man, you are not helping. You're not helping me at all here. At that point in my life, I'd been doing some security and had some security training, and this guy was not helping his cause. And I just told him, look, man, you ain't helping. He just like, oh, I'm sorry, man, and I'm just, Jesus. So, and then, the bouncer guy comes out, and he's kind of a wuss. He's like, well, we got your tag number. And it's like, well, you don't have anybody's tag number because we wasn't in his car. The tag number he got was like some other guy who wasn't involved in it, so that didn't matter anyway. But, he was kind of a wuss. But anyway, so all this is going on, and people are coming up, John, and I'm, got one arm right here, looking at the people, and that's kind of a trick for like you security folks. You don't look at the guy that you're trying to protect. You look at the people, and you have something out like where you can touch him, where you can kind of feel where he is, and then if he tries to get by you, then you can shoot this other arm, kind of in a way and stop him and restrain him. And keep him from making it even worse than it already was. So he was, making all these people angry, and finally we got everything settled down by just being calm. Me talking to these people, and of course the police, were called at that point, and they come by and we sat on the curb, and they interviewed us, and I don't know. I mean, the guy's father was a police officer in Decatur, and he just kind of used that to get out of it, which is kind of a douchey move. But that's what happened because honestly, I wasn't going to jail anyway. I had everything to do with it. But like I said, the bouncer was kind of acting like a punk. The people were freaked out, and everything else. And so it took a lot of verbal de-escalation, to do it in calmer heads. Had this guy had those same skills, it would have been a whole lot less stressful on me, man, because I was sweating bullets. It was tough. It was absolutely tough. So anyway, moving on to the next part. The first thing is knowing when you're being threatened. And in all honesty, you'll feel it. If something don't feel right, it's probably not right. Sometimes we're taught in our lives to ignore our instincts, but, we have those instincts for a reason. They're there to help protect us, and you should listen to them. If you feel threatened, then it's real to you, therefore it's a threat. Because you're really feeling threatened, whether the threat is actually real or not, and that's something you're going to have to deal with. Verbal de-escalation isn't about self-defense, it's more about self-protection. Self-defense, for our definition, is when you have to use physical force against an imminent attack. This is more about self-protection, which is not making, 10 to 20 mistakes you probably made before the violence ensued in the first place. If you look at the example I gave above and think, well, don't go to places like that, or don't hang out with people like that, so, I don't hang out with people like that, so I don't need this stuff. Well, I didn't hang out with people like that either. It just, kind of happened. But, and I definitely don't now. Like I said, I'm a lot older and a lot more mature. But if you think that this can't happen to you because of that, you need to rethink it. Because it comes in handy anywhere there could be a conflict. It could be a teacher disciplining a student, a parent with a problem child, a stewardess with an angry passenger, a manager with a disgruntled employee. The list could go on and on forever. Workplace violence is on the rise. And this is another true story. Years ago, before, I was working for myself, I had to have a regular job like everybody else, and I worked as a team leader in a factory that made DVDs. They made them for like MGM. It was like movie DVDs and stuff. And I did private security on the weekends, but that's what I had to do to pay the bills back then. Um, at the factory, the management was horrible and the stress was at an all-time high. And when the employees would get pushed to the edge, I'd call them over, and I'd just kind of take them for a walk, around the factory, and I would let them vent for a bit and use some verbal de-escalation to calm them down, so they basically, didn't attack me or screw up in something and you get fired. Because in high stress environments, some people can wig out. And they may otherwise be good people, and you hate to see them lose their job and not be able to provide for their family. So, you're kind of helping them by doing so. But you just never know, what some people are capable of, and so it's always got to be taken seriously. I remember, there was this one guy that flipped out a couple times, and he got mad, because, like I say, it was a high stress environment. The job didn't pay very well. The upper management was well, not all of them, but a good many of them were a bunch of jerks that didn't have any people skills, and then that would rain down on me, and then I would have, be the unfortunate person to have to pass this along to them, and then, they would lose it. But anyway, with this one guy, normally, man, he was a really happy guy, or he seemed to be. He was always smiling and laughing and cutting up and everything else. And a pretty jovial guy, but he'd get upset every now and then. But he seemed like the kind of guy who wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, I came in. It was in January, and I was like, "Hey man, where's Leon at, man? He hadn't been here a couple days. Did he just go on and quit?" And they were like, "Well, we got that income tax return in, man. So you get that good income tax return in, man. They're gonna go on and quit, live on that till they get something better, man. So he gone, I'm like, oh, well, that sucked, man, because I liked him. He seemed like he was a good guy. You never know. A few months later, I was watching the news. This guy, I swear to God, this guy, and I couldn't believe it because they showed his picture, on there. He murdered his girlfriend. Same guy now, same guy that, was a happy-go-lucky guy, murdered his girlfriend and stuffed her body in a closet and just left it there. And he ended up getting caught because, it started to stink, and the neighbors actually called the police, to check it out because the place just smelled horrible when the body started to stink. And, this is a guy, that was actually really well liked. People thought he had a good personality, and he's just a stone cold crazy killer, So, you never know. You just never know what some people are capable of. As far as I know, he's still in prison. At least I hope to God he is. He killed somebody. But to me, verbal de-escalation is better than physical force. Physical force should always be your last resort when everything else breaks down. You don't want to risk hurting someone or getting injured yourself if you don't have to, or, getting in trouble with the police and whatnot. Not to mention all the fallout that could ensue, such as, like I say, civil suits, lose friendships. So now what we're going to do is look at some tactics. The first thing is listen. If you take an angry person and try to talk over them, they're only going to become more angry. You aren't going to accomplish anything by being dismissive of somebody else's feelings. You have to try to empathize and actually really mean it, and try putting yourself in their shoes. When I worked in that factory, this was the main tactic that I used, once they got it out of their system, and then it was much easier to calm them down. Because, I hated my job too, because I was middle management, and I was caught in the middle, and my job sucked too. So I understood how they felt. The next one is distraction. If they're hell-bent on flipping out over something and focused, then break their concentration, just do it in a challenging way. I was at a party one time and a guy used a tactic about, asking about a guy's pit bull to get him to talk about that, they were arguing and, the dog was down there and and I just out of nowhere, just randomly, right in the middle of their argument, the guy's like, hey man, where'd you get that dog? Well, I got him, Wow, and then they kind of worked away from like being mad, started talking about the dog, and he just distracted the guy. Another time, you just offered to say, "Hey, man, my bad, dude. I'll buy you a beer." I mean, I know in the South, you're not supposed to turn down a free beer. That's a big thing down here. So, we have that, and that's another thing, you can do to get somebody's, attention away from it. Humor. Humor can be, a tool to put somebody at ease, but use it sparingly. I mean, if you're not funny normally, you're not going to become funny under stress. I had two friends arguing one time, and another guy stood up in the middle of it and passed gas, and it stunk so bad that we all left the room. We were so busy talking about how bad that guy stunk. Um, people actually forgot what they were mad about. So it couldn't have been much, but that's not, that shouldn't be a go-to thing, but I'm just saying that's an example of something to get somebody's mind and break their concentration when they're just laser focused on, I'm going to get this guy, and then something happens, and it's like, what? You know, um, that's, a funny one, and like I said, that, actually, you know what, just forget that one. Forget humor. Anyways, the next one, you would look at is empathy. And, I mentioned it one time already, but it's really important. How can you calm someone down when you don't even understand why they're angry? That's why you listen, which is the first thing. You ask questions. Put yourself in their shoes. They're not mad for nothing. Like I said, it goes back to listening, so you don't know, otherwise you're not going to know what you're supposed to have empathy for. Um, if you challenge them, you're basically just invalidating why they're angry, and then you're not going to be successful. Don't be judgmental. That's going to work against you. Try actually, legitimately try to understand why they're angry. The next part is motivation. If you're a teacher, try to refocus them on something positive and motivate them and help build them up. Angry emotions tend to come from someone who is hurt or feels disrespected in some way, so you need to know that going in. Um, people feel, people get disrespected all the time, but when you have somebody that feels like they've already lost everything, and they're just at a huge disadvantage, and then you disrespect them on top of that, sometimes it's too much. Um, so that's why that's important. Um, so these are some good tactics that I've used most of them. If you really think about it, all you're really doing for the most part is just not being a jerk. Don't prejudge someone with the whole, oh, good Lord, here they come again with that same old crap. People tend to be the center of their own universe. And maybe it's something else, or maybe you're the focus of the crap and find out why the same crap keeps happening. I can't stress this enough. Listen. Listening is so important. Don't try to be domineering and order them or threaten them in some way. That's just going to make it worse. Don't make it a competition or some kind of pissing contest and start arguing. You need to drop your ego and put it aside if you're going to use, a verbal diffusion. Getting into some kind of power struggle is not going to de-escalate anything. And definitely don't criticize somebody who's already angry. Don't start name calling. Don't try to invalidate their anger. Understand why they're angry. These things are barriers that you put up, due to ego, when it can make the situation much worse. I've seen it a million times. You did this. Oh, well, you did that other thing. And it just goes on, and it gets worse. Try using calming statements like, hey, I want to help you out, man. Tell me what's going on. I've used that a ton of times working in management. Well, man, I hate that this happened to you. What can I do to make this right? Or tell me a little bit more, man, so I can understand where you're coming from, man. I'm just, I want to understand. And, man, so just, take some time, calm down, man. Just explain it to me, man. We'll make it right. Or, let's see what we can do to make it better. Try to understand how they feel, but don't actually say out loud to them the phrase, worst phrase ever, I know how you feel. Because even if you do, they don't believe you do. If they thought you could possibly understand how they felt, then there's a good chance they wouldn't be angry in the first place at you, and you don't want to open that can of worms. So, these are a few of the statements that aren't challenging or insulting, but I think you get where I'm coming from. Also, make sure that you're being attentive. You need to actually be listening, not just hearing. Don't be thinking about what you're going to be doing next week or somewhere else you wish you were, because people can tell when they're just being pacified, and it's insulting. Make sure you use eye contact, but use neutral gestures, such as nodding or asking neutral questions from time to time without interrupting them or stepping over what they're saying. You can do things like take something they're saying and repeat it back to them, but wording it differently. This way they know you're listening to them and trying to understand them. When you're doing this, don't be fiddling with a pen or playing a video game or watching television. Don't multitask. Give them your full attention. Remember, probably 80% of all communication is nonverbal, so don't communicate the wrong message. People are more observant than you think, and angry people don't always listen to what is being said, so your body language could be doing the real talking and telling them, what your mouth isn't. So, here's a few, body movements that send the wrong message, as well as a few helpful hints. Finger pointing can escalate something real quick, so don't do it. Shoulder shrugging makes it just look like you don't really give a crap what they're saying. Even if you don't give a crap what they're saying, don't let them know you don't give a crap what they're saying. Clenching your teeth makes you look angry and makes it look like you want to fight. A fake smile would honestly make me want to hit somebody because it's condescending, and people do pick up on it. Quick movements could surprise somebody or scare them, make them feel threatened. You back somebody into a corner, then it could become violent. Raising one eyebrow can appear condescending or stern. Both eyebrows raised could, spur them on, so keep those eyebrows in check. A hard stare can be threatening, or can appear threatening to some people. Now, eye contact is good, but just, what we used to call eye screwing somebody, like that's bad. That's definitely not good. Um, Closing your eyes longer than normal will also do the same as a shoulder shrug, like this. Usually when you have that, you have the eye roll with it. Or at least when people do it to me. Also, keep your hands visible. Don't invade their personal space, and keep a distance from them far enough, away that they can't grab you or do something. You have some kind of a barrier. Keep your hands to yourself. Don't touch them. That seems like common sense, but some people don't like, oh, no, it'd be all right. No, it ain't all right. Don't touch them. Don't raise or lower your voice or, try to talk normal. Don't try to, because if you start talking like now, that once again comes off as condescending. Another thing that can help is try to talk to them away from a group, talk to them one-on-one by themselves, because people, onlookers, they love to instigate things. People love seeing other people go at it. Especially this day and age. If at all possible, bring another trusted person to talk with them. They can be a witness. When two people are talking with someone, there's less chance of violence a lot of times. Not always, but that can tend to help. Or like one of their friends, a mutual friend, so to speak. The same tips, listed for body language as far as, staying neutral. Watch for those and watch for those cues in the other person as well. To kind of look at their mental state. In closing, it all boils down to listening and actually caring. Sincerity goes a long way. Don't be dismissive or try to insult someone's intelligence by pacifying them and then thinking they won't notice. Listen, listen, and listen. These skills are not difficult to master, and frankly, there's a lot of people that do these things naturally. And if you don't, now you have some skills to work on and just, keep them in mind. Hopefully, this gives you a good foundation and a good basis for further study. And hopefully, you learned a few things about verbal de-escalation. And, I thank you for watching. And once again, I hope you learned something. I hope that all these things help you out. And we will see you next time. Thanks.